an amazing cleaner stopped to help a stranger. Discovered he was the billionaire no one knew. Maria squeezed her mop for the last time that evening, feeling the bones of her body ache as she looked around the empty school halls. The fluorescent lights hummed softly overhead, a soothing reminder that her work, however menial, brought some small semblance of order to this chaotic world. She found comfort in the routine, even as drenched clouds threatened to spill over her head on her drive home. But thoughts of her little girl Lily rushed to the forefront of her mind, igniting her spirit. Each sweep she made brought her closer to a future where Lily could thrive, far from Maria's own struggles. Yet the weight of her responsibilities felt heavy as the rain began to pour, so much so that for a moment she considered just heading directly home. After all, the endless cycle of chores awaited her. But as she drove past a dimly lit stretch of road off the beaten path, an old car caught her eye. Its engine sputtered. A man hunched over the steering wheel, soaked and defeated. Maria felt an unshakable pull, a tugging at her heart that pushed her to stop. She couldn't ignore someone in need, even with the exhaustion weighing on her mind. Jacket soaked through, she stepped into the downpour, her own spirit dampened yet determined to help. The man looked up, revealing dark circles under his eyes as he expressed his frustration about missing an important work meeting. As the rain pounded against the asphalt, they exchanged weary stories. Maria, detailing her deep roots as a single mother, and him, Jack, explaining the pressures of a tech company plagued with complex relationships. Their struggles unfolded like a well-worn script, and despite her depleted spirit, Maria's laughter came easily, sharing a camaraderie that stemmed from their respective battles against an unforgiving world. They found refuge in a nearby diner, the aroma of coffee and warmth swirling around them, a stark contrast to the chaos outside. Maria let the steam from her cup comfort her, craving the normalcy of conversation. The discussion shifted toward social equity, each revealing how life was riddled with inequality. Jack speaking of charity work his company barely scratches the surface of, while Maria grappled with her own constraints. But as hope began to twinkle, a flicker of opportunity shining in the air, doubt crept in. She could feel the palpable tension in her chest. Could she abandon her steady janitorial job for something unknown? A way out, a chance for Lily's future. How could she consider leaving her community behind? Suddenly, a piercing phone call disconnected them, sending a rippling wave of tension through the diner. Jack's expression turned grave, shadows collapsing onto their table, as a darkness from his past bubbled back to the surface, intertwining fate in ways neither could predict. She felt the ground shift beneath her, her heart racing as she grappled with the unexpected threads connecting their lives while the storm raged outside. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. The weight of Jack's turmoil mirrored her own fears, and Maria's mind raced with questions. Could she really tap into this world, surrounded by wealth she previously condemned? Yet there remained her unyielding loyalty, the core of her identity built from sweat and grit. Her entire being tugged in two directions like a frayed thread. As Jack's gaze met hers, words sputtered between them, unspoken anxieties igniting the air with electric tension, uncertainty trapping them like the slice of rain blurring the diner windows. Would they be able to navigate the delicate paths of their intertwined futures? Or would the revelations shatter everything they hoped for? Maria's pulse quickened, and as she stole a glance at the storm raging outside, her resolve weakened, knowing she was just one choice away from everything she had ever known. In the dim light of the diner, the air grew thick with an unspoken tension. Jack's phone call lingered, the silence between them stretching like a taut rope. Maria felt her heart thud heavily in her chest, each beat echoing her growing anxiety. She had always prided herself on her instinct to care for others. Yet now, faced with Jack's personal calamity, she felt a wall of uncertainty rise within her. "You okay?" Jack finally muttered, his voice gravelly, shaking her from her reverie. "Yeah," Maria replied too quickly, her fingers nervously tracing the rim of her coffee cup. "Just thinking." About what? His eyes, once weary and burdened, bore a spark of curiosity, momentarily breaking through the shadows of worry. She hesitated, the weight of her dreams colliding with the reality painted by that phone call. "About opportunities," she confessed, glancing out the window where rain trickled down like the unanswered questions in her mind. "I have this steady job. It may not be glamorous, but it puts food on the table. I want to be there for Lily, give her the life she deserves, the schooling." Jack's expression softened as he listened intently. "But is that all you want for yourself?" His question struck her like lightning. Could that be all she aspired to? She had dedicated her life to Lily, but what did she dream about, beyond her sacrifices? Did she even remember what it felt like to dream? The thought spiraled in her mind, intermingling with Jack's underlying gravity. "I never wanted much," she murmured. "Just a stable life for us, far from the chaos." The weight of her own limitations pressed down heavily. Was she afraid of failing, or simply resigned to her fate? "Stability is important," he admitted. "But consider this. You have all this strength inside of you, Maria. All this untapped potential. Why let fear dictate your choices?" His words settled like a warm blanket over her, kindling a nascent determination. But fear clung still, oppressive like the rain drenching the world outside. And what if it goes wrong? What if I can't succeed? Jack leaned forward, intensity in his gaze. What if it goes right? What if you discover a version of yourself that's been waiting to break free? You never know unless you take that leap. His conviction ignited the sputtering embers of hope within her. But as a woman shaped by loss and struggle, the idea of stepping into an unpredictable future felt reckless, a betrayal to all she had built for Lily. The minutes passed like hours. Outside, the storm raged on, each drop a reminder of the weight of their conversation. The flickering neon sign from the diner stamped flickering shadows on the table, mirroring the conflict within her. Yet despite her trepidation, she felt a stirring, a yearning to explore this doorway of possibility. "Let me help," Jack said softly, pulling her from her thoughts. "I can connect you with people who can guide you, help you grow beyond what you've always known. You've got the drive, Maria. Channel it." Just then, Jack's phone buzzed again, vibrating softly on the table, jolting her back to reality. He glanced at the screen, his face falling once more into concern. Another call. Another piece of his tangled life. Another layer she wasn't yet privy to. "Can we talk more later?" Jack asked, his eyes pleading for understanding. "I need to deal with this." Maria felt the brief thrill of adventure dissipating like steam. "Sure," she replied, the words feeling lighter than her heart. As she watched him navigate the complexities of his world, the push and pull inside her intensified. She had a decision to make: stay entrenched in the comfort of her existing life, or risk it all to explore what lay beyond. Could she truly embrace the unknown, using Jack's offer of support as the springboard to her own potential? The rain let up slightly as Maria stepped back into the night. Her thoughts raced ahead, chasing the flickering fragments of ambition ignited by Jack's words. What waited for her on the path she had yet to consider? With a shiver of anticipation, she reminded herself that change was a river she must learn to navigate. Tomorrow, she would begin to confront not only the possibilities Jack offered, but also the fears tightly woven into her identity. The urge to run back to her predictable routine warred with the idea of chasing a life that could fulfill both her and Lily. As the first glimmers of dawn began to emerge, she whispered to herself, "It's time to decide." The question now lingered heavy in the air. What would she choose when faced with the reality of change? The first rays of sunlight broke through the overcast sky, casting a warm glow on the fragmented cityscape. Maria stood at her kitchen sink, water running as she submerged her hands in the soapy suds, the familiar motions grounding her in the moment, yet offering little comfort. She had faced countless challenges in her life, but the talk with Jack felt different, thrilling and terrifying, a precarious tightrope between her responsibilities and unclaimed aspirations. As she rinsed the dishes, echoes of conversation flooded her mind. Jack's eyes, illuminated by intensity, pierced through her uncertainty. His words were seeds planted in her consciousness, stirring layers of dreams she had buried beneath a lifetime of caution. What would it look like if she dared to reach for more? Would she be ripping apart the very fabric of her existence? Or could she weave in something beautiful, a life not just defined by survival, but by fulfillment? The thought clung to her as she prepared for the day ahead. She picked up Lily's favorite lunchbox, yet the routine felt laced with hesitation now, each compartment a reminder of her commitments, but also of limitations imposed by the very life she believed she had to lead. In that moment of solitude, she felt a flicker of resolve. Maybe today wasn't just another day of chores and trivialities. Maybe today could be the first stepping stone toward reimagining her life. With a deep breath, Maria summoned the courage to activate the point of change. An idea began to form. She would begin to take small steps. Nothing overwhelming, just a commitment to explore the possibilities that Jack suggested. She thought of what Jack had said, channeling her drive. She scrawled a list on the back of an old envelope. First item, research local workshops on skills that always interested her. Writing, graphic design, or even entrepreneurship. The scope felt both exhilarating and daunting. By the time she dropped Lily off at school, her pulse raced. Each heartbeat whispered of potential. Of course, doubts crept in. What if she didn't have the time? Would Lily see her mother's pursuits as just another distraction? But in a small voice beneath the clamor, Maria questioned, what would they both gain from her stepping into the light of self-discovery? Flanked by other parents, Maria felt the weight of their expectations weigh down on her. Deciding to ignore the judgmental glances and whispers she could almost sense, she pushed those thoughts away and made her way back home. Alone again, she made herself a cup of coffee, determination swirling along with the steam. She reached for her laptop, ready to dive into the digital world that could link her to burgeoning dreams. After 2 hours, she found herself immersed in online workshops and tutorials, tracking what aligned with her buried ambitions. Phrases like cultivating talent and uncovering potential gripped her attention, sending sparks of excitement through her limbs. In that moment, she felt an empowering shift. Her identity was expanding beyond mother and employee to something richer, something more complex and vibrant. As she hit register on a writing course, she felt a knot untwist within her. The future remained uncertain, but a thread of possibility now wove its way through her daydreams. The echoes of Jack's urging reverberated in her mind. What if it did go right? What if through this endeavor, she uncovered aspects of herself that had long lain dormant? With this tether to change now securely fastened, Maria stepped outside to the world anew. Suddenly, the simple act of walking to the grocery store became an adventure, imbued with a sense of purpose. Each block represented a pathway not just to food, but to a self she had yet to fully realize. However, as she turned the corner, a shadow loomed. Across the street, Jack emerged, his phone pinned to his ear and a cloud of tension visible in his posture. Suddenly, the familiar fear twisted in her gut. Was he still weighed down by the storm in his life? And how could she reconcile her newfound determination with his evident despair? Their eyes met, both of them caught in an unspoken moment. She felt pulled between self and the support that Jack needed. As he caught her gaze, she wondered if this would be the collision of their individual journeys, a chapter of strength and vulnerability entwining, or a reckoning that would lead them further apart. In that breathless second, the door to her aspirations seemed on the brink of swinging wide open. But what lay beyond that threshold? Would it be the realization of a long-awaited dream, or an inevitable tripping point into chaos? Maria's breath hitched as she stood frozen, her heart racing against the backdrop of her newfound hope. Jack's presence felt heavy now, an unforeseen twist in a narrative she was only beginning to write. She could see the furrow in his brow, the tightening of his lips. This was not just a casual encounter. Uncertainty gripped her. Would this connection breathe life into her aspirations, or would it wind up chaining her to self-doubt? "Hey, Maria," Jack called out, his voice tinged with an urgency she hadn't expected. "Can we talk?" As she stepped closer, the enticing breath of possibility began to dwindle. "Sure," she replied hesitantly, the thrill of discovery quickly overshadowed by the shadow of his turmoil. Jack shifted, barely holding his phone now. "I'm facing some stuff at work. It's a lot." His words were a bridge, pulling her back toward old worries she had intentionally set aside just moments before. "I guess I thought—" He paused, searching her face for an answer that didn't come. "I thought talking could help." A part of her wanted to absorb his pain, to ease the weight on his shoulders, but the other, a stronger part, fought back. Why, after just stepping onto a path of self-rediscovery, would she compromise her aspirations to be a comfort for him? But as she looked into his eyes, she could see the war brewing, and her heart ached to offer support. "Jack, I've just started to make changes in my life," she said carefully. She felt the need to state her boundaries, yet her words sounded tentative, as if she were trying to navigate an emotional minefield. "I signed up for a writing course this morning." "That's great." His surprise was palpable, but it quickly faded into a frown of concern. "But Maria, I really need someone to help me figure this out. I'm feeling lost." Her newfound courage trembled under the weight of his plea. Was this distraction worth the disruption it could bring to her developing identity? She wrestled with the tension, the dilemma of whether to extend a hand to Jack or protect her budding dreams like fragile seeds sprouting from the earth. "I think I can help in another way," she said. "Why don't we meet this weekend and talk things through?" It felt like a compromise, a tether that wouldn't pull her back into old patterns but would allow her to remain present in his life. Jack's smile returned, warmth lighting up his eyes once more. "I'd really appreciate that," he admitted, though the shadow still lingered. As they parted, Maria felt an unsettling mix of excitement and trepidation. Would she have the strength to continue moving forward in her own growth while supporting Jack? The taste of new beginnings was bittersweet against the fear of backsliding into the past. With each step home, the adrenaline from her encounter surged again. There was potential at her fingertips, yet it was intricately bound to the uncertainty that Jack brought. Returning to her empty kitchen, she faced the wall adorned with her burgeoning list of hopes, workshops, goals, a new narrative unfolding. But Jack's presence drifted back into her thoughts like a persistent ghost, reminding her just how tangled aspirations could become when interwoven with others' challenges. The clock ticked loudly in the stillness, and Maria made a choice. She would not abandon herself but integrate this friendship into the fabric of her journey. With renewed determination, she picked up her laptop again, but this time, she opened a blank document and began to write, documenting not just the stories of others, but her own, a narrative that would reflect both her struggles and triumphs. As the night crept in, she suddenly felt a rush of inspiration. There was a story to tell, one that threaded between her own unclaimed aspirations and Jack's evident battles. The thought sent a thrill spiraling through her, and she smiled, a small defiant act of reclamation. But just as she was about to dive deeper into her writing, her phone vibrated on the table. It was a message from Jack. "Can I share some of my ideas with you before the weekend?" The text resonated with unvoiced complexities, sparking newfound tension. As uncertainty flickered in her thoughts, Maria knew one thing. The intertwining of their paths was just beginning. The next phase of her journey awaited, and with it, a struggle for balance, a quest for clarity amidst emotional chaos. Would she find the footing to keep walking toward her dreams while embracing the unpredictable journey that lay ahead? Maria took a deep breath, the message from Jack lingering in her mind like a shadow. She debated whether to respond immediately or to delay, uncertain if engaging with him further was a wise choice at this juncture. Her aspirations felt fragile, delicately positioned like a house of cards, and any shift could send it tumbling down. But the curiosity about what Jack wanted to share gnawed at her. She typed and deleted a few drafts, struggling with the right words. Finally, she settled on a simple reply. "Sure, I'm open to hearing your ideas." Once the message was sent, Maria couldn't shake off her own feelings of vulnerability. What did this frequency of communication with Jack mean for her own progress? Each ping from her phone felt like a reminder of the distractions she had vowed to avoid. The next few days stretched out, filled with anticipation mixed with dread. Maria immersed herself in her writing course, desperate to cultivate her newfound ambition. She filled pages with thoughts, weaving together fragments of her story, allowing herself to drift into the world of fiction, a world where uncertainty transformed into possibility. Yet Jack's presence loomed large. He was a constant undercurrent, tugging at her focus and her strength. Each evening she found herself resisting the urge to check her phone, her resolve swaying like a delicate pendulum between support and self-preservation. On Saturday afternoon, they met at a local cafe, a place adorned with whimsical art and friendly chatter. She chose a corner table, the sunlight pouring through the window to illuminate her thoughts on paper. It was a conscious decision to find the balance, to invite Jack into her space while still holding her ground. When Jack arrived, his eyes bore the familiar weight of concern, but flickered with determination. "Thanks for meeting me," he said as he took a seat, unease evident in his body language. "I've been thinking a lot about what you mentioned, about change and—" He paused as if struggling to find the right words. "I guess I'd like your insight on some ideas I've been developing." Her heart quickened. Was this a moment where he might help her understand his struggles, while simultaneously offering her a glimpse of his aspirations? She knew she risked losing herself in his narrative, but the possibility of intertwining their journeys was almost intoxicating. "Of course," she replied, her voice steady. She leaned forward, genuinely curious. "What have you got?" As Jack unfolded his ideas, Maria could sense the flicker of ambition fueling his words. He spoke about projects that could revitalize aspects of his work, about innovation aimed at creating more meaningful interactions in the office. Yet, amidst his excitement, she noticed the shadows beneath the surface. Each moment of clarity was punctured by an undertow of self-doubt. Listening to him, Maria felt an odd paradox within herself. A mixture of enthusiasm for his potential, yet a deep-seated urge to assert her own ambitions. "Those ideas are amazing, Jack," she said, allowing herself to connect with his vision. She drew parallels to her own experience, adding, "You know, it's similar to how I feel about writing. I want to shift my perspective, tell stories that resonate and create genuine impact." Jack regarded her with a glimmer of admiration, yet it was mixed with confusion. "How do you even know where to start?" he asked, seeking wisdom while still grappling with his own hesitations. "Honestly, it starts with a choice," Maria replied, grappling with her own principles as she spoke. "Choosing to confront the fear and act anyway. Sometimes the biggest obstacle is ourselves. We have to push through our own limitations to emerge stronger." The depth of their conversation drew them closer, yet the difficulty of shared vulnerability bubbled just beneath the surface. Would they each manage to step outside their old selves, lest they become mired in each other's struggles? As they transitioned into chatter about logistics and team dynamics, Maria felt a spark ignite within her. The complexity of balancing her independence with a desire to help Jack stirred something inside, a call to courage intertwined with burgeoning aspirations. But just as the energy shifted positively, her phone buzzed again. A notification flashed on the screen. Her writing course instructor had sent a message regarding an upcoming submission. The tension mounted within her. Submitting her work meant stepping further into the unknown, reflecting her deepest fears and triumphs. Caught between Jack's world and her own burgeoning ambitions, Maria froze. The decision loomed, and the fissures of her commitments began to fracture. Was she prepared to expose both her vulnerabilities and triumphs? In that moment, uncertainty flooded her mind. The dance of support and self-preservation was about to reveal its true complexity. How would she navigate this perilous path forward, tangling her aspirations with Jack's unfolding narrative? As the clock ticked away, Maria knew she was teetering on the edge, ready to confront whatever came next, determined to find her footing despite the emotional storm waiting to sweep them both into uncharted territory. The pivotal decision to step out of her comfort zone awaited just ahead, entangling her story with Jack's in ways she could not yet fathom. Maria stared at her phone, the notification glaring back at her like a lighthouse in the fog. A cascade of thoughts swirled through her mind. The deadline for submission loomed, reminiscent of a dagger poised above her ambitions, sharp and unwavering. The prospect of unveiling her work paralleled her newfound connection with Jack, each drawing her into a realm fraught with uncertainty. "Are you okay?" Jack's voice cut through her reverie, concern etched on his brow. "Yes, just thinking," she replied, forcing a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. Her mind was a battlefield, a clash of her aspirations against the remnants of her doubts. "I just got a message about my writing assignment." Jack leaned forward, his interest piqued. "What's the piece about?" That innocuous question hung in the air, heavy with significance. Could she share her fears, her hopes? Would it reveal her vulnerabilities, or could it serve as a stepping stone, drawing them closer rather than creating distance? It's about change and the journey we take to find our voices, I guess," she said, feeling the words leave her mouth like a silent confession. "Navigating through fear. You know, the usual stuff of writing." "Sounds powerful," Jack said earnestly. "You've spoken about wanting to create impact. This sounds like an opportunity to do just that." His encouragement was like a flicker of light, pushing back the shadows looming in her mind. Yet the weight of his words ushered forth the stark realization that she needed to act. The narrative she wanted to weave couldn't remain dormant. "Do you think it's too personal?" she questioned, her insecurities surfacing. "Personal is good," Jack replied with a sincerity that surprised her. "That's where authenticity resonates. I think you should lean into it." Maria considered his insight, feeling the tension pull tight within her. Could embracing vulnerability in her writing reflect the same courage she observed in Jack? Might it offer not only a reprieve from her internal chaos, but also a bridge between their stories? "What if people judge it?" she murmured, almost to herself, her eyes drifting to the cafe window where the world moved about, blissfully unaware of her turmoil. "Then they do," Jack countered firmly. "But what about the ones who don't? The ones who connect because they see a piece of themselves in your words?" Each word resonated deep within her. The potential audience was a reflection of her own fears, those who might shatter her carefully crafted illusion of competence, while also holding the power to draw inspiration from her experiences. As the conversation shifted back to logistics, Maria felt an exhilarating pulse course through her veins. Jack's ambition offered a fresh perspective, a reminder that she wasn't in isolation battling her demons. They were both grappling with their own shadows, yearning for clarity while sorting through aspirations. The cafe atmosphere crackled with creative energy, and her resolve began to solidify. An idea formed in her mind, a call to action. She could write about their intertwining journeys, expanding her narrative into an exploration of shared battles, generic, yet profoundly personal. There was strength in connection that could bolster her resolve. Marshalling her courage, Maria turned to Jack, her heart racing with renewed conviction. "How about I share snippets of my work with you as I go along? Your insights on the ideas could help me shape the final piece." His eyes brightened, and there was something spark-like in his demeanor, a blend of relief and excitement. "Absolutely, I'd love to be a sounding board for you," he said, the encouragement infectious. With newfound determination, she pulled out her notebook, half filled with jottings and essays, a window to her soul. It felt significant, almost ceremonial, as she propped it between them. This wasn't just about her anymore. It was about evolution, about growth, and allowing collaborative manifestation of their ambitions. Her phone buzzed yet again, this time a subtle reminder of the deadline pressing closer. "Looks like time's running out," Jack said, glancing at the screen. "Are you ready to take this step, Maria?" His question hung heavily between them. Would she embrace both the challenge of submission and the opportunity to deepen their connection? The beating heart of her aspirations and fears crashed together in a singular moment of clarity. With a breath that felt like release, she nodded. I need this." But as the words settled between them, a familiar trepidation returned, gnawing at the edges of her resolve. Jack's journey revealed cracks she had not fully acknowledged in herself. Were they both ready to navigate the complexity of intertwined stories without losing sight of their own paths? As she prepared to dive deeper into her writing, the ground beneath her feet shifted once again. Would their shared vulnerability uplift or engulf them both? The journey was only beginning, and the intertwining of their narratives promised to lead to uncharted territories. As Maria sat across from Jack, the world around them faded into a muted hum. The cafe's vibrant atmosphere now felt oppressive as the stakes grew higher in her mind. The prospect of sharing her writing was a double-edged sword. She craved the connection his insights would provide, but the thought of exposing her vulnerabilities was daunting, a layer of herself that she had guarded fiercely. The notebook lay open, the pages filled with raw fragments of her thoughts. It was more than just a collection of scribbles. It represented a part of her identity waiting to be unveiled. Yet, anxiety clawed at her insides as she turned to the first page, grappling with the reality that each word she wrote would echo her inner turmoil. "Let's start with something simple," Jack suggested, his tone encouraging. "What moves you the most about change?" His question prompted a flood of memories, past moments where change had struck like lightning, illuminating darkened paths. She hesitated, mentally reviewing the self-doubt and fear that had clouded her journey for so long. Could she articulate these emotions, or would they be lost in translation? Tentatively, Maria began to write. She jotted down the first lines, outlining feelings of loss that accompanied change, the silence that followed after dreams slipped through her fingers. Jack's presence felt steadier now, less like an observer and more like a partner navigating together through this complex terrain. "You know," she mused, "change has always terrified me. I used to think it was something to be avoided, like a storm approaching." Her voice softened, laden with honest reflection. "But now I realize it's inevitable, even necessary." Jack leaned in, his eyes wide with interest. "That's it, Maria. That fear can lead to real insight. What if you explored that juxtaposition further? Fear versus acceptance." A revelation struck her. This wasn't just about her narrative. It was an exploration of her own evolution. Just as she had invited Jack into her world, she could allow her audience to walk alongside her on this journey. For the first time, her insecurities transformed into fuel for her creative drive, illuminating her path forward. "Marrying those contrasts could amplify your message," he continued, gesturing animatedly. "Devote a section to how you battled against fear, and then reveal how you learned to embrace it. Your authenticity will resonate. It's relatable." With each suggestion, a thread of clarity tightened around her unsettled mind. Thoughts began to crystallize on the page, the narrative shifting from personal fear into collective understanding. How had she not seen this angle before? The fears that had once confined her now served as stepping stones toward a more profound connection, not only with herself, but with potential readers. Observing Jack, Maria noticed a spark, engagement ignited within him, much like her own. This collaboration held more value than she initially understood. It became a mirror through which they faced their vulnerabilities together. They were building something unique, a synthesis of thoughts and experiences that honored each individual's journey while collectively transforming them. Then came a realization that rocked her. Could these shared experiences morph into a larger narrative? One where vulnerability became a beacon of hope. If real change was born of honest confrontation with fear, she should own her story without retreating into the shadows. Embarking on this new narrative direction felt charged with urgency. She jotted down bullet points, battles fought, revelations made, and ultimately the evolution of self-perception. Maria's heart raced at the thought of what lay ahead, the blend of excitement and fear swirling within her like a tempest. As they discussed ways to flesh out these new ideas, Maria felt a wave of determination wash over her. The worry about others' opinions began to ebb, replaced by a fierce desire to express her truth as authentically as possible, despite the lingering apprehension. Finally, amidst her renewed inspiration, a lingering question posed itself. What if this transformative journey led them to face deeper, more personal fears? What if she were to push Jack and herself beyond the initial vulnerabilities? Just as they prepared to wrap up their session, Maria posed the question that echoed the most profound uncertainties of her heart. What if we're unprepared for the truths we might uncover together when we dig deeper into our stories? The weight of her inquiry hung heavy in the air. Jack paused, considering the implications of her words, his expression unreadable as they confronted both the thrill and the risk embedded in their evolving connection. The exploration of their intertwining narratives had only just begun, and there was no telling where it would lead. Maria took a deep breath as Jack's words reverberated in her mind. The possibility of unearthing hidden truths felt monumental, a terrifying yet thrilling realm begging for exploration. She had spent so long shying away from vulnerability, content to hide behind her words. But now, fortified by this emerging connection with Jack and the nascent confidence forming within her, the idea of digging deeper beckoned like a siren calling her to the depths. "How do we prepare for something that feels so raw and tumultuous?" she asked, her voice a mix of eagerness and fear. "What if we uncover something that shakes the foundation of who we think we are?" Jack studied her for a moment, his expression contemplative. "Sometimes it's the uncertainty that leads to the most powerful revelations. Think about it. What do you fear most about yourself? Those shadows can be illuminating." The question hung in the air, teasing her mind with echoes of past insecurities. She had always felt undeserving, a mere imposter in spaces dominated by those who emanated confidence. Identifying those fears felt precarious, but Jack's unwavering gaze invited her to peel back layers that had grown thick over years of self-doubt. I fear being inadequate, Jack. What if I'm not a good writer? What if my voice isn't enough to break through?" Her thoughts tumbled together, a chaotic blend of anxiety and despair. Jack nodded, acknowledging her turmoil. "That's a common challenge among creatives. Are you willing to confront and share that part of your journey? That vulnerability could create a powerful connection with your readers." As he spoke, an idea took root in her mind. The very inadequacies she felt could form the bedrock of her narrative. If she let her audience see those insecurities, perhaps that would invite them into a shared human experience. The thought ignited within her a flicker of compelling energy. "What if I frame my fear of inadequacy as a pivotal theme?" she ventured, the wheels of her imagination churning visibly for Jack. "What if instead of avoiding it, I embrace it? Explore how that self-doubt pushed me to write in the first place?" Jack's eyes lit up, an affirmation sparkling in his gaze. "Exactly. That's where authenticity thrives. The reader will resonate with your struggle. They want to see your growth, not only your victories but the moments that challenged you." Maria found herself scribbling fervently, her thoughts spilling forth with renewed vigor. As she crafted outlines, embracing her fear and the path it carved, an unexpected presence of clarity overcame her uncertainty. Words began to swim from her subconscious, weaving the narrative together with threads of both vulnerability and tenacity. Yet, as she wrote, a newfound ticking clock amplified an unsettling awareness. What would the exploration reveal about her relationship with Jack? As they peeled back layers of their own fears, she could feel an intimacy developing, an uncharted territory that felt both exhilarating and daunting. Was she prepared for that level of exposure? Each question led her deeper into introspection. Would venturing into their shared narrative provoke feelings she hadn't anticipated? What truths might arise, altering not just the trajectory of her writing, but also her emerging bond with Jack? "Let's push the boundaries," she suggested, a mix of trepidation and excitement coursing through her. "What if I write about moments of failure too, the times when I let my fears take over?" Jack smiled, his enthusiasm as palpable as her own trepidation. "That could be transformative. Writing is as much about vulnerability as it is about craft. We can reflect on our darkest moments and rise from them." With each heartbeat, Maria felt a dawning sense of clarity. The search for deeper truths was no longer a daunting pit. It was an invitation. Despite the fear bubbling within her, she found herself yearning for authenticity, for the courage to uncover her layers, to redefine who she was through the lens of her experiences. The cafe had transformed into their private atelier, each word that left her pen chipping away at the walls she had built over the years. Yet, a low hum of apprehension lingered. Was she ready to confront her deepest fears and unveil them not only to the world, but to herself? As she completed the latest draft of her outline, the weight of her earlier question resurfaced. What if there were truths lying in wait, hidden depths that required more than she was prepared to offer? Jack's gaze, though encouraging, was laced with challenge, urging her onward, deeper into the shadows. Maria closed her notebook, determination simmering just beneath the surface. But as she looked into Jack's eyes again, she felt a mix of longing and vulnerability, a flicker of intrigue about what lay ahead in this unexplored territory. "Are we truly ready to face the consequences of what we might uncover together?" she asked, her heart racing, the possibility of discovery hanging thick in the air between them. Maria sat silently in the cafe, the sounds of clinking cups and hushed conversations fading into the background. The weight of her question lingered, clutching at her insides like a vice. What if the truths they uncovered shattered more than just her carefully constructed narrative? What if Jack, in peeling back her layers, revealed vulnerabilities she wasn't ready to face? Jack's unwavering gaze anchored her. "Facing what's concealed will require courage, Maria. It might mean vulnerability, both in your writing and in our dynamic. But without that risk, you stunt your growth." His words echoed in her mind, challenging the trepidation swirling within her. She had spent so long concealing fragments of her life, protecting her heart from hurt and failure. Yet, hadn't every meaningful interaction in her life stemmed from confronting difficulties? Clarity washed over her. Embracing this vulnerability may not only illuminate her writing, but also deepen her connection to Jack. "Okay," she said, resolutely drawing a breath. "I'm willing to explore that vulnerability, to write about these fears, but I don't know how to start." Jack flashed an encouraging smile. "Begin with a moment that illustrates your struggle. What was a pivotal experience that shook your confidence?" As the question settled in her mind, a rush of memories surged forth, emotions washing over her. The first time she submitted her work to a literary magazine, the rejection email hit her like a punch in the gut. She recalled staring at the screen, disbelief and shame rolling through her. She'd buried those feelings under layers of excuses and justification. But now, staring at the blank page before her, they felt ready to rise. "I once sent a piece to a magazine," she began, her voice wavering slightly. "It was one of my first submissions and I felt so sure about it. When the rejection came, I thought my world had crumbled. I convinced myself I wasn't cut out for this." Jack leaned closer, his interest piqued. How did you respond? I retreated into silence, she confessed, swallowing hard. Instead of fighting back, I let that rejection define me. I stopped writing for months, convinced my voice didn't matter. His brow furrowed, but there was warmth in his expression. And how did you find your way back? After some time, she continued, I realized that every writer faces rejection. I had to confront the fear of that inadequacy instead of letting it silence me. That's when I started to find my voice again, slowly, through exploring those very fears. With each word, Maria felt an exhilarating vulnerability unfurl within her. It was as though she were skinning back layers of protective armor, revealing the raw, unpolished truth beneath. She looked into Jack's eyes, searching for validation, for understanding, and found it reflected there. See? Jack encouraged gently. You're already encapsulating that profound journey. Allow your readers to walk through that door with you. They're rooting for you because they know those shadows well. Just as you learn to confront your fears, they can learn from you. Emboldened, Maria began to jot down notes, extracting fragments of her past and weaving in the complexities that came with navigating a creative path. Moments of failure became rich with texture in her writing, drawing lines, connecting dots as if a paintbrush were dancing across the page. But as fervently as she wrote, doubt nagged at her. What of the deeper truths she had yet to uncover? As she navigated this heightened self-awareness, she sensed the clock ticking. There was something brewing beneath the surface of her evolving relationship with Jack. Each shared revelation seemed to bind them tighter, but also unraveled her fears about intimacy itself. Jack, she finally said, halting her writing, her voice trembling. This exploration, it's revealing more than I anticipated. What if I end up shattering the parts of myself that I've guarded so fiercely? What if I lose control over that process? Jack's expression turned serious, channeling all his attention onto her. It may feel that way now, but sometimes losing control is the only way to fully embrace change. What lies beyond the fear might be your greatest strength. Trust that growth often lives in discomfort. Maria felt a rush of conflicting emotions. Could she truly dive headfirst into this uncertainty with Jack by her side? There was a magnetic pull to explore this new terrain of their relationship, yet also a simmering fear of what might be revealed, a fear of entangling their intimate revelations with her chaotic past. Can we manage to emerge from this unscathed? Will we be ready for whatever truths surface when we navigate our darkest moments? She pondered, uncertainty flooding her mind. Jack's steady gaze did not waver. That's the real question. The moment we step into the unknown is when we grow. Are you willing to take that leap with me? Maria bit her lip. As the cafe buzzed around them, she felt their connection deepen, standing at the cusp of vulnerability, a precipice promising both peril and liberation. A moment of truth hung in the air, challenging her to confront the roots of her fears head-on. Let's face those truths together, she whispered, heart racing, the invitation to dive deeper, tempting yet daunting. But as her resolve solidified, she couldn't shake the feeling that something deeper awaited them, an unraveling that could change everything. What other truths lingered beneath this surface, and how would they reshape not only her narrative, but their burgeoning bond? Days turned into weeks as Maria fully embraced her journey of self-discovery, intertwining it with her growing relationship with Jack. They met regularly, sharing moments of laughter and vulnerability. Each interaction compelled her to confront fears that had been embedded deep within her psyche. The fusion of their paths became fertile ground for transformation, and with each meeting, Maria felt the weight of her past lighten, allowing her to soar into her potential. One evening, as they sat in the cafe, Jack suggested that Maria share her completed drafts with a group of local writers. Feedback is essential, especially when you're aiming to publish. Your voice matters, and the community will help sharpen it, he urged. Maria's heart raced. The prospect sent a dizzying wave of trepidation. But what if they don't like it? What if I fall short of their expectations? Jack leaned forward, his gaze earnest. What if they do love it? What if you find clarity and connection amongst those who share similar struggles? Real success comes from putting yourself out there. You've learned that your voice matters. It's time to let the world hear it. Spurred by his words, Maria summoned the courage to submit her pieces for the community's review. She discovered the thrill of vulnerability through collective support as the feedback came rolling in. Each response painted a narrative of understanding, resonating with familiar emotions that transcended the page. This was the validation she'd long hoped for, a recognition of her metamorphosis. Weeks flowed seamlessly, with Maria reading her work aloud while observing Jack's growing confidence as well. He navigated corporate dilemmas with improved insight, innovating ideas through the very lens of collaboration they'd forged together. The more she embraced her authenticity, the more he thrived in his endeavors. But life had a way of testing her newfound resolve. One night, Jack's phone buzzed relentlessly during their writing session, pulling him away into a conversation that turned cryptic. Tension replaced the ease of their time together, coiling around the table like invisible chains. Jack returned to the conversation, his face taut with concern. I just received news from my company that a major merger might fail due to unforeseen complications. It feels heavy, like everything I've been striving for hangs in the balance. Maria watched as frustration flickered in his eyes. The very strength she had admired seemed to flicker. Talk to me about it, she offered, her voice steady. I've been so focused on my own issues trying to push boundaries. But what if all this work collapses? His voice wavered, vulnerability crashing into apprehension like unrelenting waves. In that moment, Maria felt their experiences intertwining, a symbiosis of struggles and revelations. Remember the journey we've taken together, she urged, her voice unwavering. You've faced your fears. You have cultivated strength by leaning into vulnerability. Let me remind you how far you've come, rather than falling back into doubt. Jack looked at her, the flicker of hope igniting in his eyes. You're right. I need perspective. Just as you found courage to share your work, I can counter fear with action. We're not defined by our setbacks, but by how we choose to respond to them. With resolute determination, Jack dug into his work, analyzing strategies with a renewed sense of purpose. To witness him reclaim ownership over his narrative was a reaffirmation of Maria's own growth. There was something poignant in knowing she could uplift him, just as he'd supported her climb. Time passed, and the day of the community reading event approached. The anticipation buzzed within Maria, swaying between excitement and dread. Moments before her name was called, the air felt electric. She could hear her heartbeat echoing in her ears, louder than the voices around her. As she stood before the audience, she saw kind faces glimmering with encouragement. Realizing she was no longer alone, cut through her self-doubt like a light piercing the dark. This was a chance not just for her to express her ongoing journey, but an invitation for others to embrace their narratives of fear and perseverance. With each word she spoke, Maria felt herself shedding layers of insecurity. Her voice emerged steady and powerful, resonating with echoes of her past, and their challenges transformed into triumphs. She spoke of the mosaic of failures that shaped her, the moments when doubt clawed at her resolve, yet they led her to change. When she finished, a wave of applause reverberated through the room, recognition flooding her soul like sunlight breaking through clouds. A radiant smile lit her face. The narrative that once felt tethered to limitations now soared and bloomed, laying bare the beauty and vulnerability. Afterward, she caught Jack's gaze, pride illuminating his eyes. You did it, he breathed, adrenaline rippling through him. You not only shared your voice, but you transcended the barriers you thought existed. Wrapping her arms around him, Maria felt a potent rush of fulfillment. Not only had she unlocked her individual potential, but she had earned acknowledgement not just from her community, but from herself. In the weeks that followed, Maria's confidence solidified. She received offers to feature her work on local platforms, each step forging a cascade of opportunities. The thought of her journey stitched into the fabric of her endeavors lent her the strength to keep forging ahead. Simultaneously, Jack emerged successfully from the merger negotiations, his innovative strategies leading to growth. They celebrated milestones together, no longer just an intertwining of stories, but a shared existence following the narratives that continued popularized by their respective courage. They embraced the future together, emboldened by accomplishments intertwined with the threads of adversity and resilience, solidifying their bond in a tapestry of love, ambition, and authenticity. Maria understood that the path ahead would still have storms, but with Jack by her side, she felt equipped to face them head-on. In discovering her voice, she had not only achieved recognition, but had found genuine fulfillment, a multi-layered complexity of her existence that neither fear nor burden could obscure. Out of the darkness, she emerged renewed, and with a heart fully open to the processes of life, she stepped boldly into the next chapters of her story, her journey of self-exploration far from over. Now she stood at the precipice, looking outward with determination, ready to share her narrative, forging a legacy not just for herself, but as a beacon for others to awaken their voices too. Now it's your turn. If you want to keep hearing incredible stories of transformation and breakthroughs, subscribe immediately. You need to stay tuned for the next exclusive emotional journey that will inspire and empower you. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and help us reach even more hearts just like yours. Comment below with your reactions and theories about Maria's journey. We want to hear your thoughts. And most importantly, share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to witness this powerful conclusion. Don't wait even one more second. True fans of personal growth understand how crucial it is to uplift each other.